Red light is burning. We are moving from the internal morality of the architect to the global harvest of the human mind. In 2026, the soft men believe that the most valuable commodity is oil, gold, or data. They are wrong. The only finite resource left in a world of infinite AI-generated content and synthetic labor is human attention. Everything else can be replicated, printed, or automated. But a human's focus hour is a non-renewable biological asset. We are entering the era of attention arbitrage, the systematic process of buying human focus in the low-value markets and selling it as high-voltage influence in the sovereign market. Let's dismantle the social media illusion. The soft man views platforms like TikTok, YouTube, and X as entertainment. He thinks he is the consumer. The architect knows that the user is the raw ore being mined in a digital strip mine. Every second you spend scrolling is a second of your neural energy being harvested by an algorithm and sold to the highest bidder. Attention arbitrage is the realization that 99% of the population has zero sovereignty over their own eyeballs. They are attention serfs, living in a state of perpetual distraction. The architect doesn't compete for their attention. He arbitrages it. He builds the nets that catch their drifting focus and converts it into capital. The first move in attention arbitrage is the extraction of low-cost awareness. In 2026, there are digital third-world markets, not just geographically, but psychologically. These are zones of high distraction, where human attention is cheap because the people there have no strategic goal. They are looking for a hit. The architect uses synthetic content engines, AI-driven media factories, to flood these zones with high dopamine, low-friction content. He is buying their hours for the cost of a few server cycles. This is cheap ore. He is aggregating millions of passive focus units. He isn't trying to educate them, he is trying to hold the signal. Furthermore, we must address the conversion of the mass into the elite. Once the architect has captured the attention of the masses in the low-value market, he doesn't sell it back to standard advertisers for pennies. That is a soft man's play. The architect performs attention refining. He filters that mass awareness through a series of cognitive gates. He moves the passive viewers into active communities, then into closed ecosystems, and finally into sovereign networks. He is refining the raw ore of attention into the pure gold of trust and authority. By the time the attention reaches his inner circle, it has been converted from a distracted scroll into a high-value intent. This is the ultimate spread. The soft man is a victim of the feed. He allows the algorithm to decide what he looks at. He is leaking attention every minute of the day. The architect practices attention armor. He realizes that to arbitrage the attention of others, he must first have absolute monopoly over his own. He uses deep work isolation, hardware-level distraction blockers, and neurochemical priming to ensure his focus is never stolen. He is the vault, while everyone else is a leaking bucket. This asymmetry of focus is his leverage, because he can focus for 4 hours on a single gray zone strategy, while his competitors can't focus for 4 minutes. He can build complex systems that the distracted masses can't even perceive. We must also talk about the weaponization of the algorithm. In 2026, the lords of the grid have built the most sophisticated attention traps in history. They use negative emotion loops and outrage cycles to keep the soft men in a state of neural siege. The architect doesn't rage against the algorithm, he instruments it. He understands the math of virality. He knows that controversy is just low-cost friction that increases signal reach. He uses his synthetic labor to trigger these cycles, harvesting the resulting explosion of attention and funneling it into his own private infrastructures. He is a digital parasite on the state's own distraction machine. The soft man thinks he is informed because he follows the news. The architect knows that the news is a focus drain designed to keep you reactive rather than proactive. Attention arbitrage requires you to be indifferent to the spectacle. You don't participate in the current thing. You watch the current thing to see where the mass attention is flowing, and you place your collectors at the exit points. You are the merchant selling shovels and maps at the entrance of the digital gold rush. You are the only one who isn't digging in the mud. You are the one owning the land. In 2026, attention is the new reserve currency. If you have the focus of 100,000 people, you have more power than if you have $100 million in a digital ruble account. Money can be frozen, expired, or taxed, but engaged attention is a biological connection that exists outside the permission of the state. The architect uses attention arbitrage to build liquid communities, groups of people whose loyalty and trust are his hardest asset. This is the foundation of his micro-monopoly. He has arbitraged the cheap boredom of the masses into the fortress of his influence. Part 1 is the market realignment. Stop spending your attention and start harvesting it. Every time you look at a screen, ask yourself, Am I the miner or the ore? If you aren't building the net, you are the fish. The grid wants you distracted so you don't notice the enclosure. The architect stays focused so he can own the enclosure. The spread is yours for the taking, but only if you have the torque to stop scrolling and start arbitraging. The soft man thinks that going viral is the goal. He wants the big numbers, the vanity metrics, and the dopamine hit of 1 million views. He doesn't realize that 1 million distracted views without a conversion mechanism is just digital exhaust. It is high volume, low value noise. The architect operates on the principle of the attention funnel. He doesn't just want the raw ore of human focus, he wants to refine it. In 2026, the goal is to take a passive consumer and move them through a series of cognitive sifters until they become a sovereign asset. This is the technical process of turning a stranger's boredom into your private infrastructure. The first stage of the funnel is mass market magnetism. This is where you use synthetic media factories to cast a wide net. Using AI-driven content generation, the architect creates thousands of high-frequency, short-form hooks. These hooks are designed to exploit the primal triggers: fear, curiosity, status envy, and tribalism. At this level, the content is thin. It is optimized for the algorithm, not for the soul. The goal here is reach. You are essentially scraping the surface of the digital world to find anyone who is still neural active. You are looking for a signal in the mass of static. Once the attention is captured, the architect applies the first sifter complexity. This is where you separate the serfs from the seekers. You move the audience from a 15-second clip to a 15-minute deep dive. You introduce friction. You start using a specific vocabulary, the language of the architect. The soft man, who only has an attention span of 8 seconds, will bounce at this stage. He will go back to his sugar content. This is intentional. You are purging the low-value data. You only want to move the high-torque minds into the next stage of the funnel. You are refining the ore by burning off the slag. The second stage is ecosystem integration. The architect doesn't leave his refined audience on a third-party platform like YouTube or X for long. That is rented ground. At any moment, the lords of the grid can delete your channel or shadow ban your signal. The architect moves his refined attention into private environments, proprietary apps, encrypted newsletters, or closed-loop community platforms. This is where the conversion of trust happens. Inside the fortress, the architect provides high-resolution value that is unavailable to the public. He creates a parallel reality. He is no longer an influencer. He is the infrastructure provider for their worldview. Furthermore, we must address the monetization of intent. The soft man tries to sell ads or sponsorships. He is selling his audience to a third party. The architect consumes his own audience. He creates internal economies. He sells access, tools, and sovereign solutions that keep the capital within his own perimeter. He turns the attention into a transaction loop. Every focus hour spent in his ecosystem must result in an increase in network density. By the time someone reaches the bottom of the funnel, they are no longer a viewer. They are a node in the architect's sovereign empire. They are ready to act on his signal. The soft man is terrified of gatekeeping. He wants to be inclusive. The architect knows that exclusivity is the only filter for quality. The deeper you go into the funnel, the harder the requirements become. You don't invite people in, you make them apply or prove their metabolic speed. This creates a status gradient. People value what they have to earn. By making his inner circle difficult to reach, the architect ensures that his refined attention is composed only of high-voltage entities. He is building a special forces unit out of the raw recruits he found on the digital streets. We must also talk about the feedback loop of virality. The architect uses the success stories from the bottom of his funnel to fuel the hooks at the top. He shows the transformation of the sovereign node to attract more raw ore. This is a self-sustaining energy system. The refining process itself becomes the content. He is documenting the expansion of his empire. While the soft men are manufacturing hype, the architect is manufacturing reality. He is showing the world that his parallel system works better than the official grid. This is the ultimate attention arbitrage, using the truth of execution to capture the imagination of the distracted. The attention funnel is also a psychological hardening process. As the audience moves deeper, they are deprogrammed from the state narrative. The architect uses cognitive repetition and strategic isolation to replace the software of the herd with the software of the sovereign. By the time they reach the core, they are immunized against the digital ruble and the social credit systems. They have exited the matrix of mass attention and entered the real-time execution of the architect's vision. You have not just refined their attention, you have recaptured their will. Part 2 is the systemic realignment. Stop posting content and start building a refinery. If you don't have a funnel that leads to a private perimeter, you are just a janitor for the lords of the grid. You are cleaning their platforms for clout while they harvest the capital. The architect owns the refinery, he owns the filters, and he owns the end product. In the year 2026, the man with the deepest funnel wins. The state's biggest fear isn't a man with a gun, it's a man with a direct signal. In 2026, the lords of the grid have achieved almost total control over the public square. They use AI sentinels to shadow ban dissent, sentiment analysis to throttle reach, and digital ruble integration to demonetize anyone who deviates from the standard compliance narrative. They want a world where all attention is filtered through their lord's mesh. The architect realizes that once he has refined his audience through the funnel, he must establish a sovereign signal. This is the final stage of attention arbitrage, moving from capturing attention to operating an information monopoly. The first pillar of the sovereign signal is infrastructure decoupling. If your connection to your refined nodes depends on a single centralized app, you are not an architect, you are a tenant. You are one terms of service update away from total annihilation. The architect builds redundant communication loops. He uses a tri-layer signal strategy, a public front end for mass market magnetism, a private encrypted layer for strategic coordination, and a physical meat space layer for the ultimate hard fork. He uses P2P networks, decentralized servers, and even physical meetups. He ensures that his signal is non-extinguishable. Even if the state cuts the fiber optic cables, the architect's nodes already have their orders and their logic. You have achieved signal persistence. Furthermore, we must address the monopoly of trust. In the year 2026, truth has become a fragmented commodity. The legacy media is a disinformation engine, and the AI slop has made the white market of information unnavigable. This creates a vacuum of certainty. The architect fills this vacuum because he has moved his audience through the complexity filter in part 2. He is the only source of high-resolution reality they trust. He becomes a single source of truth for his perimeter. This is a monopoly. When the architect speaks, his nodes don't verify with the state. They execute based on the signal. This is the ultimate arbitrage. You have traded cheap clicks for absolute intellectual authority. We are erasing the middleman. We are connecting mind to mind. The architect uses this monopoly to perform market capture. When you own the attention and the trust of a high-torque community, you don't need marketing. You have internalized demand. If the architect develops a sovereign solution, a new gray zone tool, a hard asset fund, or a parallel logistics network, his nodes are the first to adopt it. He has created a closed-loop economy where the cost of customer acquisition is zero. While the soft men are spending millions on targeted ads that the AI blocks, the architect is simply sending a signal. He is a market maker by the sheer force of his refined attention. He doesn't compete for the market. He is the market. We must also talk about defensive information warfare. The grid will eventually try to pollute your signal. They will send infiltrators or AI bots to create internal noise and doubt within your ecosystem. The architect practices immune system protocols. He empowers his nodes to self-police because the community is built on complexity and high metabolic speed. The low-resolution bots of the state are easily identified and purged. The community becomes an anti-fragile organism. Every attack by the state only serves to harden the trust in the architect's signal. You are using the enemy's aggression to increase the density of your own network. The final component of the sovereign signal is the conversion of attention into action. The soft man wants engagement, likes, comments, and shares. The architect wants mobilization. He measures the quality of his signal by how many nodes actually move their physical reality based on his words. Did they exit the digital ruble? Did they optimize their mitochondria? Did they invest in parallel infrastructure? This is signal to force conversion. You are not just a content creator, you are an operational commander. Your attention arbitrage has culminated in the creation of a private army of high-functioning individuals who are digitally linked but biologically independent. The year 2026 is the end of the influencer era and the beginning of the signal era. The soft men who spent years building vanity metrics will find themselves silenced by a single algorithm update. But the architect, who arbitraged the cheap boredom of the masses into a hardened fortress of trust, will remain online. He has exited the rented land. He has built the refinery. He has secured the signal. He is the only voice his people can hear in the static of the collapse. Part 3 is the final authority. Stop looking for followers and start building nodes. A follower is a consumer. A node is an asset. The goal of attention arbitrage is not to be famous. It is to be essential. You want to be the oxygen oxygen of your community's information system. You want to be the architecture of their reality. Once you own the signal, you own the future. The lords of the grid can own the cables, but you own the content of the human will. The signal is clear. The funnel is full. The monopoly is active.